Hi there, it's Jenny from Midwife and Life, and I ran a poll on my Facebook and Twitter to see what people wanted me to do a YouTube video about, and the results were that they wanted me to talk about the first 2 weeks with a baby when you first have a newborn at home. And it can be for first time mums, or if it's been a while for your second or subsequent baby. But mostly I'll be gearing towards first time mums, and if there's anything in particular you want me to address, just drop me a comment and I will do a different video for you. So I'm going to split it up into mums and then baby, and obviously there's some overlap, and if there's any questions, if you think I've missed anything out, or if you want to ask me something, then again just drop me a comment or a message and I can either do a blog post or another video for you. So firstly, I've got a few notes here just to remind me of some key points, so if I'm looking down that's why. So I've been a midwife for 13-14 years now, and I've got 3 children. I've had 4 children actually, it's another story. I lost my first child, so if you get a chance on my blog, there's the story about my first daughter there. You can think you're prepared, and when it comes to it, you're not prepared. I mean, even me as a midwife, when I had my first, I was completely overwhelmed and it felt really chaotic. So it is going to feel a big change. It's going to be chaotic, so expect that. Expect to have some loss of control. You can have certain plans in place and just gather your support network. If you haven't got your parents around, gather some friends, neighbours, anyone you can, just to have that support network around you, just someone to even just keep you company in those first few weeks, because it's such a big change. And even if you've looked after children before, it's totally different when you have your own. Remember, it doesn't matter too much about, whether you breastfeed, bottle feed, do it this way or that way. As long as you love your baby, it's well fed, warm, safe, you're not really doing anything wrong. So try not to feel too bad about the little things. You might feel like your days and nights are merging into one, that it's one long day. I found what helped me was to not count, I had 3 hours sleep last night, but it was broken sleep, and I had half an hour there and I had 1 hour there. Just forget that. Think, right, next day, new day, in the morning, whatever time, 6, 7 in the morning, that's your new day. Forget about how much sleep you did or didn't get the night before, and then you'll not be dwelling so much on, I didn't have enough sleep and I never catch up and I can't catch up. So forget that. Just take each day that comes and sleep when you can. Then eventually it will improve. It will improve. We're not all sleep deprived all our lives. So that bit is temporary, even though it feels like a long time when you're in it. So I said about accepting help. If people are willing to cook you a meal, clean up, if they're willing to come and make their own cup of tea and make you one at the same time, just accept help where it's possible. Don't turn anything down. Sometimes it can be a bit more hassle than it's worth, like if people come around and cook and then they leave you with the washing up, or you feel like you're hosting all the time. So choose your help wisely. If someone's willing to look after your pets or hold your baby while you have a shower, just say yes please, yes please. Even the little tiny things are helpful. And again, you can remember that and do the same for them when they have a baby as well. Now, breastfeeding obviously is a huge topic, and I can't cover all the breastfeeding in this one video, otherwise it would go on forever. I will say I'm going to be doing a free online course, e-course, called Preparation for Breastfeeding Success. So look out for that, and I'm going to put in a link to my mailing list, so you can sign up for that and there'll be updates when that course is going to become available. So if you're expecting a baby and you're planning on breastfeeding, it's going to be a good one to do. Again, about the support network, if you've got any friends that are breastfed, get them in place. Look up your local charities, your local Lelesh League and your local breastfeeding drop-in centres. Locate all these things beforehand so you've got your support network in place. That's really important. And tell everyone you're going to breastfeed so that they know and they expect it. And the other thing, feeding in public, all that will come later. And the first couple of weeks, first month really, you need to just focus on it and build it up yourself. And the first couple of weeks are often the hardest, and there may be little problems that you need to overcome. There might be some pain when you latch on, as long as it's not all the way through the feed. If it's painful at first and then it eases off during the feed, that's to a degree that's normal. Some people say that you shouldn't have any pain whilst breastfeeding, but you know, anecdotally and my own experiences, I know that a lot of women do have some pain. If it's extreme pain, blistering, cracking, bleeding, some of it's normal, but it shouldn't be going on, it shouldn't be very extreme. And there are people that can help, and you can get over it. Some people get nothing, and some people take to it fine straight away, and others, most people, there'll be some period of adaptation for both the baby and for you. So the baby's got to learn how to take that proper latch, the deep latch, get the milk out they need, and you've got to learn as well positioning, even, you know, practicing with a dolly, that will help, and getting the positions right, or a teddy or something, getting all the, how you're going to hold it, and it's totally different when you've got a real baby, I know. So that's all I'm going to say really about breastfeeding. Bottle feeding I'll touch on when we talk about the babies. I'm going to talk about the mum first. So I'll sort of try and do a top to toe approach, so how things will go in the first couple of weeks. So one other thing I will say about breastfeeding is that you will get lots of different advice from friends and family, from midwives, health visitors, breastfeeding peer support, breast buddies. They may all tell you slightly different things, and they may say, no, do it this way, no, hold the baby that way, no, don't do it that way, no, you're doing it all wrong, or you've done it. You've got to pick and choose a bit, because people, they're all well-meaning. Some of them will be remembering how they did it. Some of them will be the current training. Some of them will be remembering older training. So they're all going to say slightly different things, hopefully with a common theme. But you might think of it like a sort of a drawer full of advice. So you've got knives, spoons, forks, funny cutlery, and you don't need it all at once. But you might find that some things work better than others, and that works for you, but that doesn't quite work so much, and you maybe find a new way as well. So it's all in a toolbox that you've got to use. So think of it that way and say, okay, well, I'll try it on. You don't have to think, oh God, I'm doing it wrong, or I'm not doing it right. You'll find a way, and you'll take bits and pieces of advice to suit you. If you choose to bottle feed, you've got to take your formula and the bottles you're going to use into the hospital with you, so the baby gets used to the teat and you've got your formula that you're going to use. Make sure when you're home that you're only making up one bottle at a time, and this is because if there's bacteria still in the powder that they cannot get rid of in the factories, no matter how sterile they are, there's a certain bacteria that are resistant to all the treatments they do, and they're still there. It's remote risk, but it is a risk, so that's why they get you to make up bottles one at a time before you're going to use it. And we boil the water not to sterilise the water, but it's to sterilise the powder. So it must be that boiling water and onto the powder, into the bottle, water first, and then the powder onto this boiling hot water. Then it cools down to the temperature that you need. So it's a bit complicated. I know you can get those prep machines, but I'm not sure how great they are at eliminating all the bacteria. I think they work quite well at first, but then they don't do so well over time, but that's up to you what you want to use. And with bottle feeding, it's also important to still feed on demand, and they may want small amounts at first and then build up, and then you may want to build it up into a routine, more of a routine, sort of 3-4 hourly. That's up to you, but they do say just try and bottle feed on demand, and to pace the feed as well, not to give it too fast. So it's more like breastfeeding, it's more like the natural way. So I'm going to talk about the mum now. I'll do my best to do kind of a top to toe approach. So head, you're going to have all sorts of emotions flying around, hormones. There's a big adjustment in hormones after you've had the baby. So you're going to feel a bit all over the place, as well as the sleep deprivation, the adjusting to the responsibility. Your hormones will go all over the place. So the first few days you then get like a hormone crash, and you can feel very teary and very strange indeed. And I felt like, the first time I felt like I'd landed on a different planet, and there was a massive heat wave, and I just felt the world was completely different. everyone's different. Again, you might not feel so affected, and at the time you'll think, no, it's not hormones, it's this, but it is, and it will pass. If you find it doesn't pass and those feelings are continuing on, then you might want to see your GP or talk to someone about how you're feeling. So moving down the body, then we've got your boobs. When either if you're bottle feeding or breastfeeding, around day 3, sometimes a bit later, sometimes fractionally sooner, you'll get the milk coming in. Some people it happens more gradually, so they gradually notice a fuller feeling, and then other women, they will sort of wake up in the morning and there'll be these rocks and they'll be massive, hard and engorged. So if you're bottle feeding, just leave well alone, wear a good fitting bra and just leave it alone. It'll be painful for sort of 2-3 days, and then it will just ease off and the milk will just get reabsorbed into your body. That's what happens to any excess milk. If you're breastfeeding, again, as baby feeds, then the milk will just regulate itself and it goes to sort of supply and demand. So that will sort itself out. And I've mentioned about the crack, if there's any injury to the nipples through feeding, you need to make sure that your latch is okay, get it seen to by more than one person. If someone says, oh yeah, that's fine, and you're still getting this pain or still getting blisters and things, then go and get it checked again and try different positions as well. So if you're getting any lumps, you might get the odd lumps, but if you're getting any sort of hard lumps that aren't right, or there's any red parts, you need to get those seen to. Moving down then to your stomach. Well, obviously once you get rid of the baby, you're going to have a floppy layer of skin, and some women, obviously, they pin back. These celebrities that you see, their stomachs pin back straight away, and if you've been very fit during your pregnancy and you've got good stomach muscles, it might well do. Most women have at least the baggy skin. It feels a bit jellified, and you'll have a bit of a tummy still. Some women have more of a tummy and they still look about 6 months pregnant, and that takes a while to go, and others it's just more floppy, and it just varies from person to person. First time mums, usually the skin's quite good and it sort of goes backish, and you'll just have to see which one you are. But your uterus will be going back within about a week to 10 days. Your uterus will have gone back inside the pelvis, so then it's just sort of loose skin and the muscles and excess fluid and everything getting back to normal. But obviously it takes a while for your stomach to go back to how it was, and it may not completely go back to how it was. That's the joys of having children. Moving down then to your bladder, you may get a loss of sensation, you might not know as much when you need to go for a wee after having the baby. You might get some leakage of urine. That's normal within the first sort of week or 2. Do your pelvic floors as soon as you can, even if you think, oh, I can't feel it, I don't know what I'm doing. Just practice when you go for a wee, holding it afterwards, or getting that sensation so you know what you're feeling. You should be given some leaflets about pelvic floors. If not, you can look up online how to do them if you're not sure. But really do those pelvic floors, and don't worry if you do have sort of a bit of a lack of sensation, or if you're getting some leaking when you sneeze or cough. Or sometimes even if you haven't been for a while and you've got a full bladder, you might notice you get a bit of leaking. So that's to an extent that's normal. After you've had a baby, your bowels should return back to normal. You might get some constipation depending on what drugs you had in labour, just all the changes afterwards. Drink plenty of water, fluids, and eat fruit, fibre, high fibre foods. That will all help. It's really important to keep an eye on that, to make sure you are drinking enough, eating regularly. Your diet can go a bit to pot because you're not eating regularly or properly because you're focusing on the baby, so you do need to look after yourself as well, and that will be more comfortable. If you've had stitches either from a tear or through a cut, through an episiotomy, they're all dissolvable and they should just heal up by themselves. You won't need to have anything taken out. Don't worry too much about the first bowel movement. You'll build it up in your mind, but remember, everything's stretchy down there. Your bottom and your perineum, where the stitches are, and the vagina, they're all stretchy, so going for a poo afterwards isn't so bad. It's only, as I said, if you get constipated or if you've got like big piles or something, that it can be uncomfortable. But there are laxatives that you can take that will ease that. Just going back a bit to your stomach, if you had a lot of stretch marks in pregnancy, they will be red, but they will fade to the silvery marks. Take about sort of 6 months to a year to fully go to that silvery stage. Obviously it just gradually fades over time. With the stitches you can take simple painkillers like paracetamol, ibuprofen. In the short term, if you can take ibuprofen in the short term if you're breastfeeding. If it's really bothering you, you can get stronger painkillers prescribed for you, but you should be okay with those. After the first sort of 3-4 days, you might get more of a stinging, burning feeling as the stitches are healing and the nerve endings are all knitting back together. That's just a good sign that everything's coming back together, and it's a little bit more painful, but then that will then heal up, and then the second week you'll be a lot more comfortable. At first you feel like you're not going to feel normal down there again, but you will do, obviously, and people go on to have more babies, so it's definitely not a problem. It's very important not to sit. I know that a lot of times they're advertised these rubber rings, or you see women sitting on rings. It's not a good idea. It might give you, like if you sit on some cushions with a hole in, it might be better for the short term, you could do that, but in the long term it will just make the blood pool into that area, and you could put yourself more at risk of developing a bruising in that area instead of just generally having the blood circulating. If you are feeling really uncomfortable with them, try lying on your side for a bit to ease the pressure off. Again, the painkillers, you can get these, you can make cooling pads by keeping a sanitary towel in the fridge and putting something cooling in there, like the aloe vera gel you can get, and putting a wipe or something on top. But generally just keep the area clean, change your pads frequently, and that should be fine. The other thing with stitches is you don't need to have a salt bath. Some people recommend salt baths, but you'd have to have a lot of salt in there to make a difference, and it's a very slight benefit that you might get anyway, so it's not worth it to do this. But a nice warm bath without any heavy perfume soap is fine, but I wouldn't sit in it for too long, because you can just get too much water into the area and that make it swollen, and that could affect the stitches and the healing. If you've had a C-section, you will have a scar sort of just above your bikini line, about that big, and mostly they use now dissolvable stitches, so they just dissolve and you won't need to do anything about that. Sometimes they put one sort of continuous long stitch and they have 2 little beads either side, and then around day 5 your midwife will just come and they cut one of the beads off, and then they just pull one end out, and it sounds horrible but it's actually not so bad. Some surgeons may use staples, literally look like the paper staples in there, and again the midwife will just around day 5 just come and use a special tool to unclip those, and then once they're out then it all heals up. You might have the dressing that is left on for 5 days and then it's removed. It's got a special sort of healing stuff in it that is better left on. Some hospitals you're in hospital and then the next day they'll just remove that dressing and then it's just left, and you have to remember you've got not only the stitching on the outside, but you've also got stitches inside on your uterus, so when you cough or move, you're very unlikely to split anything. I think you'd have to do a hell of a lot to split any internal stitches. Sometimes you might see some of your skin not quite sitting together. Obviously mention that, and sometimes we put a little steri strip, make sure it heals up nicely, but it's very difficult to actually break anything around the C-section scar. But obviously you do need to take it easy. Driving, probably I'd leave it at least the first 2 weeks, but check with your insurance company. Mostly they say as long as you're medically fit, and then we just say you don't need to see a doctor or even get a certificate. We just say, well, do you feel comfortable enough wearing a seatbelt? Could you drive comfortably? You're not on any strong painkillers or any other strong medication that could affect your driving, and that you'd be able to do an emergency stop and be comfortable you wouldn't be hesitating about doing an emergency stop due to feeling sore with it. So I'd leave it at least a couple of weeks, and some people say up to 6 weeks, but usually by week 3 you're probably fine to drive. The bleeding after the birth will be heavy for the first couple of 2-3 days, quite heavy. You'll need to change your pads frequently. You might be sort of, you want to wear some big pants and the big pads, and then after the first 2 days you can move to the thin pads. You don't really need loads of those maternity ones. Get a couple of packets of those big maternity pads, and then just get some normal period pads like the nighttime ones or the super ones, nice long ones. They'll be fine because the blood loss will slow down sort of after 3-4 days. It will slow right down, and then after the first week it becomes a bit intermittent, quite light, a bit here and there. If you do a bit more, like if you're going out a bit more, you're feeling more confident, you're moving around the house a bit more, you might notice it comes back a little bit, the bleeding. You might have, then after sort of 10 days, 2 weeks, you might get a day where you don't really get much, and then you get a little bit more, and then it kind of just drags on for up to 6 weeks, or 4 to 6 weeks before it completely stops. Because it's not like a period. Yes, the lining is shedding, and there's more lining than there would be with a period, but you've also got where the placenta was attached, so it's like a wound in there, healing, and all those blood vessels that were attached to the placenta then healing away and stopping bleeding. So that's got to all sort itself out. The last thing I'll talk about for mums is your legs. Your legs and your ankles, you might get, even if you didn't get any swelling during pregnancy, you might get swollen ankles and feet, especially if you've had lots of hormone in labour or lots of drugs in labour. Your kidneys are then kicking out all the toxins and the fluid, and you get big ankles, and you suddenly think, oh, what's happened to me? I didn't get this in pregnancy. Have I got preeclampsia? And usually it's just the water retention, and it will go down. But obviously, speak to your midwife or doctor if you're worried about it. Right, so we'll move on to baby now. So in the first 24, 48 hours, baby's usually quite sleepy. It's quite important in the first hour to get the first feed done, whether it's breastfeed or bottle feed, usually in the first hour, unless there's some issue with mum or issue with baby. Skin to skin contact is very important, so as much as you can, as long as you can, have baby skin to skin with you in the hospital. And if you can't do it, if you're not fit enough, then get your birth partner, dad, or whoever you've got with you to do it. It's really, really beneficial for baby. There's lots of studies been done on the benefits of skin to skin, how it regulates baby's heartbeat, temperature, and brain development. So that's really important to do. That first feed, and then hopefully they'll then settle for a few hours, up to 6 hours, then they can be left without the next feed. Then they should feed roughly every sort of 3-4 hours, sometimes more often. We wouldn't like to let them go over 5 hours. As long as they're a healthy, full-term baby, they can go up to sort of 5 hours, 6 hours at a push. Like if they're feeding regularly during the day, like I'm talking about, once the milk's in, if they're feeding regularly during the day, sort of 3-4 hourly, then you can leave them sort of 5-6 hourly overnight, if they're going to. Most newborns don't, they sort of wake up regularly, especially at night, and their body clock is usually their rhythm is usually the other way around to ours. They want to be more awake and feeding at night, and they want to be more asleep in the day. It's just how naturally evolved the babies are in the beginning. They also want to be close to you, so some babies don't want to be, they seem like they don't want to be put down, or they don't want to go in their cot. I've written a post tips about how to get your newborn to settle in a cot or a crib, or to how to co-sleep safely, and I'll put the link for that in the comments of the video. That's got all my tips about how to, if you want to put the baby down, because some babies just really just want to be close to you, or if you want to sleep with baby. Not everyone can do it, and it does depend on your environment and also how you want to do it. You might find a baby carrier useful for yourself or your partner. If you've been feeding a lot, baby's still a bit unsettled, they're usually tired and they want comfort. So baby's cord, they'll have the cord will stay on for usually around a week, but it can come off sort of from day 3 to right up to day 14, so 2 weeks and sometimes beyond, but usually it's around on average about 5 to 7 days. Again, I've written a post about cord care and what to expect with the umbilical cord, which I'll put in the comments if you want to save that for later. So the cord will dry and then gradually separate and then fall off. Baby's nappies, you'll get, so wee's normal from the beginning. Regular wees, if you're not getting regular wees, then you might be in trouble. If there's a bit of orangey stuff in the nappy, then it could be a sign that there's urates in the urine and baby's a little bit on the dehydrated side, so feed more and then those will clear up, and to a certain extent it's normal. Baby's poo will start off, if you've heard of Meconium, which is the first poo that they've got in their bowels already when they're inside. The Meconium is very black and sticky, and they'll do this massive poo or loads of little poos. Some do a couple of big Meconium poos, some do loads of little ones, so they're both normal. It's hard to clean, you just need loads of either water wipes or cotton wool and water to get the poo off. Then over the course of sort of the next 5 days, the poo will gradually change. It will go sort of greeny, like bit like pesto, then it will turn browny, and then it will go to the yellow. Once it settles to the yellow, like mustardy colour, a bit like chicken korma, or mustard with, it looks like it's got little seeds in, but they're not real seeds. It varies in consistency. It can be quite watery, or it can be like a paste, but it shouldn't be hard, and it shouldn't look like a normal poo. It shouldn't look like a solid poo. It should be quite pasty or watery. It's normal for babies not to poo for a couple of days, and even longer than that, sometimes 3 or 4 days. As long as they're weeing and as long as they're feeding, settling, and the weight's okay, then that's normal. That brings me on to baby's weight. So when they're born, they obviously have their birth weight, and then they will start losing weight because they're losing they're pooing, weeing, they're evaporating into the atmosphere, so they will be losing weight. So around day 5 you'll get, your baby will be weighed, and as long as, usually as I said, it will have lost weight, as long as it's within 10% of the birth weight. Now it's a little bit negotiable, say if it's lost 9, 10, 11% of its birth weight, but it's feeding really well, it's awake and alert, then we might say we'll just carry on feeding, we'll weigh in the next couple of days. So don't try not to worry too much about that. But if there's others, I say it's lost 9% and there's others like it's a bit sleepy, it's not feeding very well, that might be, we might need to make a bit more of a plan for that one. Then by day 10 or day 12, baby should be back up to birth weight, or at least going that way. That's what we'd like to see. And then you can go to your health visitor. They will come around and weigh the baby once at home. Usually there's some overlap within the first 2 weeks. The health visitor will come, and then it's up to you to go to baby clinics. You can go weekly, 2 weekly, monthly, or a couple of times. You probably find the more babies you have, the less you go to the health visitor clinic. I think my last child had one little dot on its chart, or a couple of little dots on the chart, and then I didn't go again. But you know your own baby, and if it's feeding happy, then it's probably gaining weight. But if you are worried or you want to see the progress on a chart, then you can go every week if you want to. Then the health visitor is on hand as well to answer any questions you've got. So baby's skin can often be quite dry after birth in the first sort of 2-3 weeks, quite flaky, especially if they're late. They almost need to like peel off a layer of skin before and then start again. Their skin is so fragile, and so almost, it's not porous, but it's like a bit like that. You mustn't use any product. Try not to use any oils or creams, anything like that. Just water. And try and wait for, they say wait for 8 before having a bath. Obviously if baby comes out covered in poo and blood, you might want to wash their hair or wash something, but try to wait and just use water when you do. And then after 4 weeks is when the skin sort of starts to toughen up a bit, if you like, and you can start to introduce products, if you like, and you can start your oil massage and things like that. So unless the dryness is really severe, try to hold off putting anything on baby. And I've written about skincare, why we shouldn't use oils and baby skincare, so I'll put that link as well in the comments for you. Also with baby skin, if you might have heard of babies getting jaundice, so if they get yellow skin, is quite normal. With jaundice, 7 in 10 babies will get some form of jaundice after the first sort of 24-48 hours. Breastfed babies tend to get more jaundice, and there's some evidence that a degree of jaundice is actually good for babies' brain development. There can be problems with jaundice if they get too much, then they will need treatment. So if there's any concerns, your midwife will arrange for a blood test for baby to test the levels of it's the levels of bilirubin in their blood that cause the jaundice, and they can get treatment if they need it. If it's mild jaundice, just feeding and the baby will just flush through the excess bilirubin through its wee and poo, so just feeding will sort it out. Sunlight is a good treatment, like even if it's a cloudy day, keep baby by the window, take baby for a walk. So mild doses of sunlight as well will help with jaundice. If there's no other symptoms with baby getting jaundice, if they're feeding well, weeing and pooing, alert, then there should be no cause for concern. Also around day 5 your baby will get its heel prick test, also known as the blood spot test, newborn blood spot, or PKU sometimes it's called. Nowadays, it used to be called some of those things, nowadays it's called the newborn blood spot because it doesn't just test for PKU anymore. So it'll be offered to you on day 5, and we take a little bit of blood from baby's heel, and we have to get 4 drops on a little card, and then it's like a little bit of blotting paper. It's not very nice for the mums because we have to obviously put a needle in the foot, but it is necessary. I would say it's necessary. I'd say to everyone you should do it, because there's several conditions that they test for, not just the PKU, which is phenylketonuria. There's also something called MCAD. They test for congenital hypothyroidism, cystic fibrosis, sickle cell disease, and there's a few other rare ones in there as well, but they're all very dangerous to babies. They can be fatal if they're not treated, and they can all be treated apart from cystic fibrosis. So very important to have that done. So a little bit of discomfort for baby in the short term. Mums don't tend to like it obviously, but it's done. So it's done with the weight and the other bits on day 5. The other thing baby will have usually when it's born is the vitamin K injection, if you've opted to have that. You can also have it by oral drops, but it's not absorbed as well, and this is to prevent another rare condition where they can get bleeding into their brains around the first week, and again it can prove fatal but we don't know which babies are going to get it, so they treat all babies. So all babies have got a lack of vitamin K, which can be fine in most cases, but in some cases it can cause us problems. So we recommend giving a vitamin K supplement either by injection or by oral drops, or you can choose not to have it. A little word about babies and feeding. Remember, their stomach is very small at the beginning. It's like the size of a marble, and then it only grows to like a golf ball in the first couple of weeks. So they don't need a lot. They'll be okay with the colostrum. The colostrum is very thick and concentrated, so you don't need the same amounts as you would with bottle feeding when you first start out. So if you think that, oh my god, the formula looks so much more, and I'm only getting tiny amounts out if I squeeze. Number one, it's thick and it's concentration, it's plenty enough for baby. And if you think their stomachs are so small, they're like the size of a marble when they're first born, and then over the first 2 weeks it then grows to the size of a golf ball, so it's still tiny at the end of it, so they don't need massive amounts. And number 2, when you express milk, even when your milk comes in, you express milk, you're expressing the either if you're hand expressing or with a pump, it's never going to be as effective as the baby when the baby's feeding. And some women get loads out when they express, and they can freeze loads, and they've got spare milk coming out of their ears, and other women, like, they hardly get anything out when they express, and then they think they haven't got enough milk, but they have. It's just different when the baby feeds. Some women will have more milk than others, it's just the way it is, but there's very rarely women that don't have enough milk or don't have any milk. There are some, but usually that's a physical sort of condition with the muscle, with the ducts inside the breast, that they don't have it. So just have some confidence with the feeding and ask for help. So that's hopefully a good rundown of what to expect in the first couple of weeks of having a baby. Obviously everybody's a little bit different. These are the common things and things that will happen to you and baby. Obviously there's differences. I've based it on, you know, a healthy full-term baby. Things change if there's medical conditions with yourself or with baby. Always ask if you're not sure. Try and trust your own intuition as well. Some people struggle with that. They think, well, I don't know what to do, I've never done it before. But generally, as I said, if you're keeping baby fed, warm, safe, fed, then you're doing everything right. That's all you can do. And if you've got a little one, or if you've got a little one on the way, I wish you all the best and keep in touch. Do ask me if there's anything in particular, as I said, that you want me to go over. I hope if you've enjoyed this video that you can give it a little thumbs up on the likes, and if there's anything you think I can do better, please do tell me in the comments, and subscribe to my channel for more updates, either pregnancy, birth, babies, parenting updates. I also do toy reviews of things I get, and all sorts of things, events I go to. I do things with my children, so there's all sorts of things, something for everybody. So hopefully I will stay with you on your parenting journey, and I will see you again soon. Bye!